Buddy, to the March 2025 Curriculum Committee of the School Board of the Lower Merion School District. Lovely to see all of your smiling faces tonight. Just a few housekeeping things because I know I have messed up the order a little bit in recent meetings. When we take comments, we're going to do on topic after each presentation or each topic. First, we will go to the board, then we will go to the committee chair, Sarah and myself, then we will go to public comment in person, and then we will go to public comment in the chat. If I forget any of that flow chart, someone will remind me and we will backtrack. Also, it will probably be Sarah or Amy, but I'm gonna trust my brain. And so we have a couple things in the agenda tonight. I just wanted to let everybody know that because we have our lovely teachers here in person, we don't want to make them wait on their personal time. So we're going to do the full day K presentation before the Foundations update when we get to the presentation section. But first, we're going to talk about coursebook, oh my goodness, trust my brain, textbook approvals for this school year.
Thank you, Ms. Kalish, and I will start, and I'm going to transition. You'll have to excuse me on Ms. LaPera tonight also. Great. So we have 2 renewals and 1 phase 2 adoption. The first 2 books are, one is a college physics book in our AP Physics 1 class, and we're extending a contract from 1 year to a 6-year contract at a discounted rate. And that is the first one I present to you. Our other AP Physics class, AP Physics C, which we call E&M in school, same procedure. We have a 1 year. We are moving it to a 6-year contract and at the discounted rate. And we are looking to move those 2 forward. And then last year we presented Amplified Desmos, and in that presentation, this is going to be a full middle school phase-in, but since there are many middle school math classes, we have done it in 3 parts. Last year, we approved Math 6, Math 7, and Math 8, and if you remember, either 2 or 3 CCOB meetings, we had 2 middle school math teachers present, and one of them took you through kind of a Desmos activity and what that looks like. And that was atypical and kind of fun. We went through a math lesson and what you can expect our middle school students to do. And that was really cool. And the teacher that did that was actually a Desmos trainer, which is really integral in training our staff and being part of professional development as our staff is learning a new textbook series, which is more of a tech-forward product. Today, we are moving towards phase 2 of that, which is Math 5 and Math Accelerated 6. That is what's on the docket for tonight. And similar, the same Amplified Desmos program. And I included one slide. This is in the presentation that was done last year. But one of the things we look for in a textbook company is certainly a pilot, which our teachers have done the previous year. And overwhelmingly, Desmos was chosen for that, both in, I don't know a better way to say, customer satisfaction, the teachers liking the product more, and also kind of a pilot group of people using one of the series and the other, and then faring well in that area. And then secondly, as I have displayed for you, we use a third party. You know, our expertise necessarily isn't in research in companies on what they do. So we depend on, like other school districts, a third party. Ed Reports is really accredited and well thought of. They gave it a perfect score, which is a rare thing to have. So Desmos comes with a price tag, but comes with a lot of credibility and a lot of, through our pilot, high grades internally, certainly externally, and this is phase 2 of that. What you can expect is 1 more year of the Math 7-8 class for next year. And they are the textbooks that we have for you tonight. And I'll pause.
All right, before we get to questions, I just wanted to quickly add some clarification for some context that you provided to us earlier. So sure. For the physics textbooks, that 1 year cost has already been paid for the current year, but we are then prorating such that we have, that money is going towards a 6-year contract. So we're buying 5 more years. Or did I misunderstand?
No, I think you said it correctly. I'm thinking of the word prorated.
Not prorate, the price is being adjusted such that, it's like imaginary that we bought it as part of the 6-year plan, so we're not having a financial penalty for having a 1-year versus the 6-year.
That is correct.
Okay.
So
that is-
textbook companies want you to sign on for them longer term. They give you a discounted rate when you do multiple years. We purchased it at 1 year. They honored the 6-year, which is way cheaper, the annual rate when you purchase that way.
Right, so they
Correct.
honored the 6-year, but that will expire. We have, after this current year, we're buying 5 more additional years.
That is correct.
Okay, great. That was just clarification, not questions. Do we have any questions from the board about these? Okay, go ahead, Abby.
I have a question. For those 6-year contracts, that contract is for the content, or like, I want to make sure that the books aren't going to be updated and we're going to have to, engage in a different contract at the same time.
It's for the textbook and the accompanying resources that they have with us. Do we have a digital with that?
It's just digital, there's no physical.
The
It's just the
digital access that we would be granted.
Are there physical textbooks as well, or it's only digital?
Workbooks.
But are there physical textbooks?
You could
For
get physical textbooks.
Katie, could you come up and speak at the
Yeah.
mic, just because we can't
I didn't
hear
know
on
who
the
was
Zoom?
talking.
I was going to relay it, but I think this is more efficient, Ms. Kalish.
I like your bow tie, very Whovian tonight.
Thank you. So
need your
there
button.
are, what's that? I
Button.
Press a button.
Hello, it's science. Yes, one can purchase physical textbooks. Talking with the teachers, the way that they primarily use them, they said they didn't want or need a class set of textbooks, but if individual students want or need them, we can get them.
Okay, so then whatever updates come are digital and it's not like a big shift?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
So I think, Katie, last, as I remember right, there was this brilliant thing of physics being free. Like there was this open source, like public curriculum that we were taking advantage of that apparently was really great.
Yes, so
this
you are
is
thinking
am I remembering
of,
correctly? And is this beyond, they don't have a free version of this on the same people?
for AP, no.
Okay, so this
AP is a big
specific-
business, and you got to pay for the big,
College Board, one of the largest nonprofits next to NFL.
and just as many collisions.
Did you have any questions? No, okay. So I just wanted to, oh, did you have one? No, go for it. Mine were little.
You said it, and wait, I'm sorry, talking about brains being slow. Say it again. So we're paying $190,000 this year for 6, and then next year there'll be another 7, 8. What would you say that again? Sorry. Yes.
Hello.
Sorry,
You're
not
on Math
Desmos.
Desmos, right?
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
talking about Desmos.
Okay.
Sorry, it's on the screen.
So, all right. So with Math Desmos, this year, what we're putting in front of you is $182,000. That will cover Math 5 and Accelerated 6. This is also a 6-year commitment. With that, we will get the digital platform, the Tech Forward that Desmos offers, that's really well thought of, and consumables for every student. So if you get, I don't know the exact license on this, how many licenses we have, 455 and 275. Each year, you'll have consumables. So they will give us 6 years worth of consumables. So I'm mindful in saying this of the balance of the tech world and writing and doing math that way. What's a benefit of this product is you're able to do both, and they will supply us with 6 years worth of consumables for everything that we purchase.
Great. So there is a workbook to go with this, and
Correct.
I'm sure there's going to be at least 1 or 2 textbooks just in case a kid does need to take it home or want something like that. But I guess my real question is there an additional fee in next year for 7 and 8? I thought you said something about 7 and 8. Yes. And what's that? Is it the same amount?
I would imagine that would be cheaper because we're having fewer license. It will not be that much. This will finish off the middle school purchasing.
Right, it's not, it's not grade 7 and grade 8, it's that only the accelerated 7, 8, that accelerated math students take in 6th grade. That last year we purchased the standard, what's the on-level?
I just want to know how much money will be next.
If the money is the bottom line.
Yeah,
do you
the
have a
standard grade 7,
estimate?
grade 8 were already purchased last year, it's the next.
This is accelerated for the kids.
Year
to do
off.
that. Yeah, I get it.
I mean.
That's not the hard part, clearly, I get
Okay.
it. We bought the baseline, now we're buying accelerated. Next, as the sixth graders move to 7 and 8, which is also still middle school, so I'm a little confused, but we're not done middle school, we need the accelerated middle school. What's that additional price tag that will be a Desmos cost next year?
We will have to get a quote at the time of purchase. I'm taking a leap here, but this would be cheaper because we're going to have fewer licenses, I believe, than purchasing 2 courses. So it's one, the Math 7-8 is 1 course.
Great, and the 192 or whatever that is, 182, how much, that's how many courses is that? Just
One
give me a
course.
ballpark, is it about 50%? What do you think?
Do you have a rough estimate, Dr. Lilly?
Okay, thanks,
Yeah.
that's it. Ballpark is fine. Estimating, also math.
Thank you.
Okay, Sarah, go ahead.
Along the cost lines, any way we can negotiate their shipping and handling charges of $15,000?
I'm sorry?
The physical book, the $15,000 in shipping and handling for Desmos?
Yeah, if you want to, I'm going to bring Dr. Lilly to the microphone.
Where do they deliver
Hand
from?
the
Can we
contract.
send one of our bus drivers to go? Our wonderful, fantastic bus
It
drivers.
just seems
that we
like a
love?
lot for shipping.
So if you were to dig into the quote, what they've done is they've given us $30,000 worth of product instead of giving us free shipping. So we actually still come out $15,000 ahead, however you want to look at it. But that's what they did. They granted us about $30,000 worth of teacher resources and classroom resources instead of just taking off shipping.
And yeah, just from having done this meeting several times over the years, it just costs a lot of money to send a lot of books. And it hurts and it stinks to feel like you're paying for that, but somebody's got to pay the gas and the drivers, I guess.
The other thing I can say is because this program is a consumable, that covers 6 years' worth of shipping us the books.
Oh, well, small favors.
So do we get all the books at one time and then we store them for 6 years?
We
No.
don't.
Okay.
If we did, we would need a huge storage facility. We don't, we do not. So we
Are they-
request how many we need each year based on enrollment in the course.
Are they different books each year? Or like, if my kid takes her book that she filled out this year and accidentally leaves it in the classroom and somebody finds it and is like, oh, look, here's basically a key. Is that, or are they the same? Are
It's
they different
possible that
problems?
it's the same. If it gets updated, the advantage too of getting them new every year is if there was a change or an update to the book, we get the updated version.
Great. Are you all set? Yeah. Okay, so I had one, if we could go back to physics for 1 second. This is not related to the textbooks. I'm good on that. I was just curious if to take AP Physics in this district, you have to have taken non-AP Physics first, or like what the prerequisites to take different levels of physics are.
Will you give me 1 minute to look at my spreadsheet?
Absolutely, absolutely. I love a spreadsheet and I love people can ask for what they need. And since that does not implicate what I feel like I need to say yes or no on this, do we have everybody on the committee feel good moving this forward to the full board? Yes? Okay, that was nods. Ms. Schaffmeister, do you have any comments, questions, feedbacks, feelings?
I think you covered it all well.
Thank you very much, Mel. Okay, so
We'll
we'll
talk
keep.
about it in facilities and purchasing.
Okay, yes, absolutely, we will. We'll keep going. Katie, when you have that info, we'll circle back to you. That's good on textbooks, and now we can go to our contract review and continue talking about Desmos, I guess. Do we have to do that again?
So the first part was presenting the books, and then
Okay, great.
For board docs, we uploaded the contracts, so that's publicly available.
I see, that is why. Okay, so then we are going to go to, I'm going to assume that's pronounced Cengage. All right, that's the same thing, that's the physics textbook. Okay, so all these are the same. Cool, so I am just gonna like, listen to Katie say smart words.
Okay, so this year we revised some of the requirements/recommendations for many of our honors and AP courses to try to make them more accessible and not have unnecessary barriers. So for this next academic year, for AP Physics 1, we said students must have successfully completed chemistry, either CP or honors. It is recommended that students have earned grades of A on assessments in chemistry or B on assessments in chemistry honors. So there used to be, what was changed is there used to be a requirement that students take integrated math 3 honors. That was removed as being unnecessary. And for AP Physics C, successful completion or co-enrollment in pre-calculus, honors, or calculus is required.
Awesome. Is there any non-honors level physics? Is that a thing?
Yes.
Great.
And the answer to your question is no. You don't have to
Wait,
take,
which-
you don't have to
wait,
take physics
yes,
to
then
take.
no?
AP. You have
yes,
to
there's-
take physics to take AP Physics, you do not.
Okay, great.
Yes, there's CP.
I'm glad to see that things have evolved since I was in high school. Dr. Saltner, did you have?
It's just, why chem before physics? Because, I don't know, my brain, it was very different sections.
Yeah. That is the way that most high schools do it, and there's certainly many arguments to be made in terms of different orders.
And our students are required to take chem and bio for graduating in.
Just bio.
Just bio? Okay. Interesting, all right. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for doing that deep dive and indulging my tangential curiosity. We are gonna move on now to pausing for in-person comment. Does anybody have, in the room, have thoughts, feelings, comments specifically on either the Desmos textbooks or either of these lovely physics textbooks? Come on up,
I have the
Talia.
sign-in sheet here, if you'll
Yep.
sign your name.
We do have the sign-in sheet, as usual.
Please introduce yourself and what town you're from. Sign in first.
Oh, yes, and take candy if you want candy. We instill all sorts of good habits.
Hi, Holly and Sam Ardmore. I was just wondering if you could pull back the slide so I could write down the cost for the textbooks.
It's all on board docs. If you want, I can read them out for you.
Thanks.
The first one is $10,648 for one physics book. The other is $19,760 for the other physics textbook. And for Desmos Math 5, Math Accelerated 6, it is $182,000, $182,059.40. Man, I am sorry tonight. Okay, now we are going to ask Ms. Buckman if there are any comments in the chat. No? Thank Pete. I would love to hear about full day K right now.
So I'll introduce Dr. Gaudioso is going to make the presentation for full day kindergarten. With her, she has Ms. Lawson and Ms. Mancini. And I will say before we do the formal presentation, as I travel around to the schools and Dr. Mussolini has come with us and Ms. Schaefer, we always, when we're in the elementary school, visit the kindergarten classroom, and anecdotally to walk by to see the joy and see the teachers enjoying being with students and seeing them in all parts of the day. It seems to be visually working, but it's going to be exciting to hear the update from our professionals. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Gaudioso, and I'm excited to hear from our two kindergarten teachers that I've seen firsthand, and they're outstanding.
So good evening. We're excited to be here. Thank you for having us. And I just want to give an extra shout out to Ms. Mancini and Ms. Lawson because tomorrow they have full day conferences, so they'll have a long day. They've got early morning meetings. So I just want to thank them again for being here on top of all they've done as instructional leaders, and that's really what they've been. So full day kindergarten, for those of you who may be listening from home, this is something that is new this year. It was a long journey to arrive here. So I'm going to share an update on full day K implementation, give you a little bit of a mid-year update on the program goals, a little bit of feedback on implementation, perspectives of the teachers, as well as some data. Also talk about some technology integration that emerged as a question, along with some of our next steps in terms of supporting teacher needs. And we'll share with you how we're evaluating, and a little bit of that will be familiar from previous presentations where we shared what we were going to do to take dipsticks and measurements along the way. So first, I want to thank the board and the community for the commitment to full day kindergarten. While there was a lot of community support for it, we know the rationale is strongly supported by research, greater reading and math achievement gains, helping to narrow achievement gaps in primary grades, higher reading and math scores, the benefit of increased instructional time, social emotional learning benefits, which I've been hearing more and more about, and integrated learning experiences, some of which come naturally with a full-day program. Others we're growing into and really enjoying those conversations. So you'll hear a little more of that from our teachers. Just an update on enrollment. This is a slide that you saw at the start of the year. This has our projections from MCPC and then our actual enrollment numbers at the start of the year. You can see in red we were a little bit off our estimate of numbers of sections. However, where we increased a section in one place, we decreased a section in another and came out neutrally in terms of number of sections. This is an update on enrollment since our September presentation. So you can see the parentheses with the plus sign is just students who have joined us since the start of the year, just to give you a glimpse. Most around 1 or 2, we have a little more at Gladwin, a little more at Marion. Let you absorb that for a moment. And one of the hardest things as we were moving into full-day kindergarten was estimating how many students we could expect. And that will probably remain difficult because we don't have a pattern or a trend yet, having just lived our first year. So the program in action is my pleasure to share the microphone here. Kirsten Lawson, who is one of our kindergarten teachers at Belmont Hills, is going to jump in and give you a little introduction and then turn it over to Sam Mancini.
Hi. Here's a sample day in the life of kindergarten that we've been working on in the full day life that we've been living this year so far, 161 days or so. But each day it varies between schools, but we each hit all of these markers within our day. I'm going to be talking about that next slide. Our schedule is, our curriculum we did not write from scratch. We started talking about it in the summer, but we had such a rich curriculum last year that we were able to build on it and expand to give it time that it really needed we couldn't fit it all into the half day, so now we're able to actually get to everything. And now we've added science and had more math group time, which has been amazing too. We've added things like fine motor boot camp, win time in kindergarten, purposeful play, and now they get to experience all 5 specials, which is different. We just had library and gym, but now we get everything, and it's really fun. They love it. That's the highlight of the day for them, at least at my school. Yeah. Let's see here. The core reading and math program was already in place, so we just, the curriculum team was amazing, though. I want to give a little / giant shout out to them. 2 of the masters of the craft are right here, Dory and Sam. They worked so hard to make our curriculum incredible, adding so many diverse texts and rich literacy to our program. And we're really focusing on building our community in the humanities, and just the time to include these texts has been incredibly meaningful. And I guess we didn't realize how much we had last year until we'd been given the time to actually do it all. And I don't know if I said that backwards, but the science too, we have a whole new, like I said, we have a whole new science curriculum that the kids love. It's very hands-on, and we haven't had time for science officially, so now this is a new program that we're all kind of getting used to and figuring out, but so far so good. Thanks, Katie. And then math, having the more time for math is amazing too. We now do math centers and have more time to explore and think creatively, which who doesn't love math, right? Yeah. But just having the time is the biggest gift, because now we're not pressured to squeeze it all into 2.5 hours. And the exploration piece is huge for these 5 and 6-year-olds. And we've been working in thematic and interdisciplinary ways, so the learning is integrated and meaningful for all students. And then oopsies. I'm used to talking in front of 5 and 6-year-olds, so this is a little different here. Okay. So purposeful play, Sam will be joining me soon, but the planning team felt very strongly about the importance of integrating time for play-based learning. So having that gift that half hour every day to play and to explore has been huge in our class, and I think that's the general consensus across the board. It's allowing kids to grow socially and reinforce those academic skills in a play-based scenario. I know Sam is going to talk about it more, but she is the master of building this purposeful play. I'm learning from her, but it's been amazing to have the time and space to allow the kids to play and grow and show what they're learning within play. Okay, come on up here. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I love the quote that's up here, that play is the work of children. It's so true, and I feel like play before this year was something that we didn't always have time for, and when we did have time for it, it was maybe 10 or 15 minutes, which really was, the result was a lot of arguing and fighting over who got to play with the things that they've been waiting to play for, if they even had it. So now we've got a nice chunk of our day devoted to purposeful play. We are able to carry over some of our science. It might be in the form of a Come and Explore Center, or our ELA read aloud books last week and this week are on penguins. So we turned what was the house, and then it was the McCaffrey store. It was Starbucks for a while. Now in my classroom, it's a penguin research center. So they're taking what they're learning and they are exploring further through books, through Pebble Go. They're making their little research papers that are hanging all over this center. So it's really nice to see that they have this time to carry it over and reinforce not only their academic skills, but also the social emotional learning. They're working together. They're collaborating in the Block Center on building designs. They've been pulling out the 3D shapes since we learned about those in math, and they're building different structures or different little igloos for the penguins. So there's all of this stuff that's going on that is just what you would want in this perfect little kindergarten world. So it's really been a lot of fun. So here's some pictures of kids hard at work. You can see the shapes that they're building in the middle. But just a lot of carryover. A lot of our classrooms have the little market that's in the top left corner. And like I said, that market might change and be selling different things to go along with the different things that we're learning about. Oh, you put this in. I didn't know you put this in. So this is my classroom. This is the penguins that we're learning about. And you can see the little boy in the middle. He was the first one to start his research. So since then, this was just middle of last week, we have about 6 more kids that are working on filling out these little webs, and then we read them before we start the next play center the next day. They're making puppets. The little boys in the bottom are passing eggs to each other, as the emperor penguins do. So there's just a lot of carryover for what they're learning. And then the other part that I was going to talk about is our screen time. We as teachers of young children are very aware of the concern of how much time they're on their one-to-one devices in kindergarten. We really are using them in a very thoughtful, meaningful way. Most of us, I would say, are using them during reading time or math time. Math might be working on Dreambox for a little bit, or using it we have a great word problem app that goes along with our curriculum. So as we're working on word problems within the class, the math period, we might follow up by having them work on an app that follows the lesson that we've done. Same with guided reading. They might be working on decoding, and then they can work on Starfall to kind of follow up when they're done and put what they're learning in their lessons to use individually. Some of the other things that we do with iPads, we're able to differentiate learning instruction that's going on. It might be an activity that we can get many different levels of readers to be able to do by differentiating through our iPads, maybe a voiced over lesson or voicing over the activity that they have to work on individually, just giving them that little bit of instruction one-on-one through apps like Starfall or Educreations allows them to be more successful with their work. So with all of this, we're still only looking at usually 15 to 25 minutes would be a max And that's not even every day, because some of those days their group is being pulled for guided reading. So it's mostly during center time. And that's it for me. So.
Okay, so I'm going to share some outcomes and key results. Some of them are related to things we said we were going to do and what that looked like in action, and then other things that have emerged, anecdotes and some qualitative information from our teachers, and then a little bit of data. So teacher communications, this was really important to us. If you have been here, you have heard us report out on this multiple times, trying to keep a feedback loop with our teachers, trying to prepare for the change, trying to plan together, and it is an amazing collaborative group. We really recognized, however, that as we're essentially doubling the staff that was in kindergarten, we're going to have a lot of new people coming on board, and trying to have everyone aware of what's available, what the expectations are, what we're trying to do, what's being ordered as we were doing summer hiring and having some changes in the fall. So we had summer updates that went out monthly, so that if anybody was coming into kindergarten, we were sending things out with, here's where we are, here's what you can expect, here are the play-based learning tools that have come in, here are the books that have come in. So that was throughout the summer. Anybody who knew who was onboarded had these updates were available. And we were each time, updating everyone on, and here's our full complement of kindergarten teachers, so that you knew who to reach out to, and we were sort of trying to build community. Once the year launched, we kept up some of that, but thankfully, more of it was able to be in person. Of course, once the school year started, we had a kindergarten mid-year check-in with the kindergarten team on the in-service day. They had opportunity to come together. We also, when we did our mid-year update, had an opportunity for a survey to be attached to that, asking about teacher needs, asking about professional learning needs, so that could inform our planning for the in-service day. And then we pulled the entire, or invited the entire full day K committee to have a mid-year update just on where we are, what are some of our next steps. So it really has been just a continuation of the work that we started almost 2 years prior to this, and really trying to keep the vision for what we're trying to achieve at the front of our conversations and our work, knowing that it's year one, we're going to get better every year, and how can we learn from where we are and keep growing. So that teacher communication and feedback loop we really think is critical for supporting the teachers, helping them learn from each other, but also helping us learn what they need and where our next areas for growth are. So it really has been a collaborative effort all around. So some of the feedback we got from teachers came from some surveys, just informal surveys, focus group when everybody came together, a representative team, and that's that full day K committee where representatives serve and have longer conversations that are focused on different parts. Some of the themes that emerged, I'm going to share with you here on the right side of this screen. And this is that sort of qualitative data that we collected. And it was really exciting to hear this. So in the focus group and in the survey, what teachers were reporting is some of what Ms. Mancini was saying, stronger conflict resolution skills. So when the students in prior years had some playtime, it was so, whether it was rare or whether it was, I want to turn with X, that idea of either delaying gratification or accepting no, or all of those things that go into turn taking is harder without practice. So now that this is an everyday experience and teachers have built a framework for collaboration and have been teaching into cooperative skills, they're seeing some really cool stuff happening. The improved turn-taking skills, fewer arguments, getting along better. The perception is it's an increase in social skills and independence. What I heard multiple times from the teachers is, I can't wait till first grade teachers see these students next year. When they've had a whole full year under their belt of full day kindergarten, a whole full year of specials, of lunch, of foundations. So that refrain was there with a lot of pride and joy. Like, I can't wait till they see what students are coming in with. More socializing, just with the opportunities through the day. And this was really cool. Students owning those classroom norms and policing themselves was some feedback that we got, which was really cool. Also supports PBIS, positive behavior and community, just throwing that out there. More time for skills practice. You heard a lot about the instructional minutes differences, which are great. Building stamina, and really just loving recess, lunch, and specials. So these were the themes that emerged. Our plan when we talked as a full day K planning team was we're going to take those themes and a couple slides back, you'll have seen the play-based learning slide that had the cognitive skills that are part of what we expect, the emotional, social emotional learning skills that we expect to grow through these opportunities. We're going to put together some sort of Likert scale and be able to send that out to teachers to get a sense of range, to get a sense of is it from everybody, because as you know, surveys, you don't get 100% all the time, focus groups, not everybody speaks up, but just to try to take a snapshot in time. And we also are going to do this with first grade teachers next year. What are they seeing as they're coming in? So there's a lot of cool conversation and things we're looking forward to finding as we go, and we just think it's going to get better each year. So these are some other themes, experiences, perspectives. Here's what's going well. I'll let you take a look there. A lot of it echoes what was already shared. Works in progress, things that we expected to take us longer to become really expert with are taking us longer to become really expert with. But I would argue that our teachers are probably way further along than they believe. So that idea of being more integrated, and in fairness, PA Steel's brand new, and that's what they're trying to integrate on top of play-based learning. So trying to, there were science, thematic, interdisciplinary units in the past, now trying to align them with Steel's and align them with play. There's a lot of integration going on, and as you can imagine, works in progress. And these were actually Sam's words, which I loved. We're still growing into how best to implement. So I loved that was framed so positively, because it's true that integration is going to make the experiences kids are having even richer. But it still feels like a learning year. We would like to, one of the needs that the teachers had, one of the wishes was more time for collaboration. And we also had a lot of teachers moving from different grade levels, different places. That calibration and calibrating their expectations for what is normal for a kindergartner at this time of year. So those are things that as people have changed grade levels are works in progress, and the conversations people are having are really rich and wonderful. So the collaborating more, what we recognized is teachers needed to get grounded in their building level teams first as a PLC, so that they were anchored in their home buildings, and we're going to spend this spring trying to build more of the cross-building collaborations. So Sean Bernatowitz, who's on our full day K committee, is trying to explore how can we have a little release time once a month for teachers for the rest of the year so that they can have a little more cross-building PLC virtually in the mornings. And just be really positioned well to jump into summer planning, and next year having had that sort of spring opportunity, that final quarter of the year, to really have some collaborative conversations. So measuring growth, these are some of our next steps. This you have seen before. We said we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have measures that we've been using for a long time in kindergarten. We will continue using them, and we'll continue asking questions of the data. I'm sharing a little bit with you. Today, just a little snapshot. We've had a slight increase in overall DIBELS performance compared to last year, and even the year before. Incremental subtest growth compared to the last several years. Greatest increase in DIBELS nonsense word fluency and words recoded correctly subtests. Increase in students demonstrating proficiency in reading and math on curriculum-based measures, and increase in students demonstrating advanced performance in reading, writing, and math on curriculum-based measures. And I'll show you just a couple views of that. So this is before full day. This is from the 23-24 DIBELS. I didn't do a 3-year view for this because it started getting really tiny and I didn't think you'd be able to see, but we're about the same ballpark year prior as well. But you can kind of get a glimpse of the amount of blue and green and where students are. The score that's at the top there for this mid-year is almost exactly the same this year. So when we transition to the next year, we're looking very, very similar to where we were this time last year. Not surprising in some ways because we didn't add a lot of time to the language arts block. We were already using foundations, which Dr. Martin Patone's going to give an update on. So we already had some really strong literacy in place, and this is a literacy measure. What is kind of cool is once you break it apart into the subtests, this is a for-year view, you can see the blue is this year. So we only have 2 blue bars so far, one for the beginning of the year, one for the mid-year. So we haven't yet collected end-of-year data, obviously. But you can see a little tiny incremental increase for the blue. And that was on phoneme segmentation fluency, which is one of the foundational phonics reading measures. Letter naming, again, a little incremental, slight growth with the blue again in letter naming fluency at the mid-year. And this is where it started to get kind of interesting. A little bit more than just a small, like incremental growth, a bigger jump when we got to nonsense word fluency. And there are 2 measures for nonsense word fluency. One is words recoded correctly. And the other one I did not put in here, but what I can say is they both had a jump. Just trying to keep the presentation short. And just what we do with the data is, this is interesting, but tell me more, and we have conversations and dig in a little more. So one of the things we'll dig into is, why do we think that happened? An anecdotal response from one teacher who's an interventionist was, you know, with win time in kindergarten, we can have a full court press. So the perception there was, we've done letter sound, letter sound, letter sound. We're at the point now where we're doing CVC, which is consonant, vowel, consonant syllables, and working on word blending in that way. And he felt like, this is it. This is what we've been doing. And it's a whole team approach with MTSS. They've got shared responsibility. So it's not just the one teacher rotating kids through a station. It's the team coming in, and they had set a kindergarten goal, and they were on it. So that's his theory, and we'll just dig deeper as we go and just, you know, next building down the road, just keep wondering, you know, why are we seeing gains where we are, so we can do more of what's working really well. Okay, so mid-year guided running records, you can see this was interesting because we have more of the dark blue, which are some of the advanced scores. So again, different kids, different cohorts, notable, curious, something we'll keep an eye on as we move forward. Mid-year math, similarly. What you might not be able to see there is the numbers where the red and yellow are overlapping, but our number of students who are in red, I think, is a 2.1 this year, and our yellow is a 0.7. So the reduction of students scoring basic and below or below proficiency last year to this year, we went from 3.6 to 2.8. Again, 1 year of data, but still notable and interesting, and we were happy to see you know, the decrease in need and the increase in proficiency. Mid-year writing, have to be fully transparent. Not all the writing scores are in. Teachers are entering them, but we're kind of watching as they come in. And again, seeing some increase in the blue, which is exciting, and you know, something that we'll continue to watch and see where we are at the end of the year. So areas for us to keep growing include just continually looking at where kids are and how we support them, because the need, the support follows the need. In terms of teacher support and learning, I shared we want to just keep growing our PLCs, our professional learning communities, and we're going to really dive into the cross-building collaborations. We've got some virtual resource banks. We had big ideas in the summer in our book study on what we were going to share and how we were going to get into this stuff, you know, with virtual sharing networks, and people just needed to get their feet under them in the fall. So we're very excited to go back to some of those really cool, innovative ideas that include walkthroughs. And you think of like walkthroughs being by supervisors, but we really wanted teachers to be able to see each other's classrooms, and what could that look like. So we also have coaches who are in training who are going to do a coaching cycle with our new teachers. They're concentrating on our newest teachers first. So anybody new to kindergarten who is a new teacher is going to have a little coaching support as well. So that's it. Any questions?
Thank you so much for that fabulous presentation. Before I headed over to questions, I just wanted to acknowledge what an immense amount of work and dedication has gone on from you and from the whole team, from the administration, from everybody in all of these elementary schools that we have in our district. I just want to recognize that this was a big lift, and it was something that was really wanted and really needed by the community. And it is amazing what you have all have stood up, and I just really wanted to acknowledge you and thank you for all your hard work and dedication to this work and to our kids. And with that, Kimberly.
Ditto, thank you for all of the hard work from the whole team. I am curious, what is the core reading program and what is the core math program? What are we using?
So for math, we're using investigations. Our core reading program used to be Journeys. It's outdated, so Dr. Martin Patone has done an amazing job creating a structured literacy block. Foundations is our core phonics program, and then it's supplemented with others, with other resources. So like Haggerty, phonemic awareness, guided reading, you heard about that. I'm trying to think of a...
Foundations is supplemental, we have interactive read alouds, we have mentor.
Sorry, Dory, could you come up to a microphone?
It'll be a little bit.
It's a big list.
I know,
It's Foundations is the supplemental to address the structured literacy piece, and then comprehension and analysis, we have interactive read alouds, we have decodable readers, we also have Haggerty for the phonemic awareness, we'll speak to that a little bit. We also have independent text readers that could be leveled, and we also have mentor picture book texts that are mini literacy lessons, so it all goes together as a cohesive model.
Okay, and again, out of curiosity, are we still using Lucy Calkins and Fontes and Pinnell products?
Products? We're using products, but they're not the core program. So what they've been in the news for is relying on a program for foundational phonics and literacy that isn't designed to do that. So there may be some leveled resources that are used for comprehension, but they're not used for decoding.
Okay, and then my final question is, what is our expectation for the kindergartner at the end of the year, the skills, the academic skills that we want them to have in preparation for first grade?
That's a big question.
I mean, a hypothetical, what do we?
Yeah, I would say, there's still standards aligned, right? So students are still working toward the kindergarten standards. In terms of how far we can go in a year, we do have some wondering, like, can we have slightly higher expectations? So there are places where we're investigating that as well, without going into too much detail, like about the reading levels, like, but yes, we haven't changed our core program, except to have perhaps higher expectations of it. But as we've said, it's a learning year, and we want to have that match to where students are developmentally. Like when I was first saying, oh, let's take some data, I was reminded by kindergarten teachers, well, they really are just 6. They're in their first year, and we have to recognize that this is where, developmentally, we were really focused on the independence, the social emotional learning, and that really strong foundation in literacy and math. But we'll have to see, what the end of the year data tells us.
Okay, great. No, I'm all for social emotional and Montessori-ish and Waldorf-ish stuff. Are most of our kindergartners 6?
Did I just say 6'5"?
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for catching that.
This time of year, a lot more of them are than when we started.
Yeah, we're looking at enrollment. So thank you for
Okay,
clarifying.
thank you.
I appreciate it.
Anybody else? Okay, Dr. Sutner.
I'll be quick. So science, I feel like you said science, you haven't had science yet. Is that, if I'm remembering correct?
Science, you mean in prior years, it would have been
No,
integrated?
during the course of this year.
Oh, yeah, they've been,
Okay,
yeah.
I must have heard you wrong. I was like, we haven't had science yet, so I just, I wasn't sure.
In prior years, it was more integrated because time was what it was. So
Great.
now, as a standalone,
But clearly
Exciting.
there's penguins learning, so there was definitely science going on.
Yes.
I was really excited to hear the stamina too, because we also changed school start times. And no, it didn't affect maybe the kids that didn't have school before, but it definitely affected the teachers. So that was like a really nice finding too, that they were building it over the course of the year. Great data, thank you so much. I know it's small samples and it's small numbers, but it was still really helpful to kind of do these checkpoints and talk about how you're measuring it, both like quantitatively and qualitatively. So thank you, I really appreciate it. And will we present this at the board meeting? Because I think it's a really fantastic hint presentation with a lot of how are we making and affecting change? And maybe the whole community should hear it in a larger setting. Hint.
yeah, we can explore.
It's great. It's one of the biggest things we did this year, and we did 3 really big things. So I think it's wonderful to share it louder and longer. Say it for people in the back.
There you go.
I just want to say thank you as well. This is wonderful to see, and I can say as a parent who has a first grader now and will have a kindergartner next year, it's huge, and the amount of time that they have to grow and to be children and to, you know, not race through it, but really learn through it, I think is wonderful, and I love seeing what you're doing. I have two questions. One is, you had mentioned about having like a first grade, you know, sort of a leveling data point. I'm curious, is that something we can do for a few years to kind of compare and contrast and see how kids are, whether or not they're more ready for first grade and where they might, you know, might benefit from some more support, not to put any more pressure on the teachers, but just to identify what areas might need more focus.
Sure.
And potentially building that out to other grades.
Yeah, when we did K+ and extended day kindergarten, I like to think of it as almost a Head Start model. When you're in that cohort, we sort of follow you and see what else you may need. And for example, that cohort we were following to see did they need anything additional, because a lot of early childhood gains are decreased by around third grade. So we had an after-school reading and math program that we're putting in third grade where need was. So things like that were already in place. So I would say we would continue just doing what we do, which is just keep watching what do kids need, and make sure that what we're doing is meeting the needs, so the support's following the student needs.
That'd be great, and building it for all, like building it out for everybody, you know. And the other thing that I wanted to just sort of whisper in ears, I guess not whisper, but I appreciate the screen time consideration and you know, recognition that we want to be mindful of it. Writing is so important, and learning to write is so important, and practice and repetition is so important. So whether it's color, you know, whether it's drawing, letter formation, number formation, I just want to advocate for protecting that skill, and especially as kids get older, as we know, typing takes over, and it's so important to be able to do that. So, and that's a huge confidence builder as well when kids see their own progress. So I just wanted to advocate for that. But thank you very much. This is huge to see, and it's really, it was wonderful. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. It's great to see the progress you've made. I wouldn't be surprised if the return on the investment in full-day kindergarten actually materializes more in first grade and second grade, the magnitude of that benefit, rather than in kindergarten itself. Not to take away from the, you know, the graphs, but anyway, will be seen going forward. But then the other thing I was really impressed by is the serious consideration that you're giving to one of the challenges I think that you're seeing, and that is how to more effectively integrate I think horizontally integrate our curriculum between the play and the different activities throughout the day, right? I think that's what you're getting at. And I think the more that you can do of that, the more creative your learners will be. So I applaud that effort. The question is, what is the limiting thing there in being able, so it's a challenge you have on how to do that effectively. What is the limiting thing? Is it the guidance in the ideas on actually how to pull that off? Or is it simply time? Like, what do you need from the administration? What do you need from the board to actually do that?
I would say one that I know, and you guys can correct me on this, like PA Stills is brand new. Foundations is a couple years old, but there was some reminiscing on, remember when we were working with, you know, almost having the book in your hand as you were familiarizing yourself with it. So the idea that you can take something, synthesize it, make something new of it to integrate more broadly while you're still learning it. So I think the PA Stills being new, not that it's a barrier, it's really just going to take some time, that's all. And I think the time for sure, having the teachers have some opportunity to collaborate, that was something that came out loud and clear to me in terms of what they would like for support. Anything you would add with time and experience?
You need just time and experience to work through things. We're learning as we're going along, so I feel like the longer we do
I'm sorry, can you use the microphone? It's just because we live stream it, and so if you don't say into the microphone, the people don't hear it.
I was just saying we're learning as we're going along, and I feel like when we get through this year, we'll have a richer sense of where we want to go next year. But, you know, it's a work in progress.
I want to echo everyone else's thank yous. I know this was, like others have said, a big thing to do and a big thing for our district, and it sounds like it's going really well. I'm excited about it. I did have a question about the professional learning communities, and I think that ties into the time as well, because in the past, when it was the half-day programs, kindergarten all had a time that you were all available without students that was similar. So how are the professional learning communities working now with the new schedule? Like, how does that fit in to the new schedule? When is there time for that?
Do you want to? I mean, I can say in brief, I mean, the common planning time is something that the principals commit to. The places it becomes difficult can be, for example, if you've got more than 5 sections. So like Penn Win, you know, you might have some staggering of alignment. But that's something that everybody recognizes is really critical.
Do you mean across schools or within the school?
Within the school, yeah.
Yeah, anything you would add to that?
This is the first time we've been able to do it.
Yeah, right, because of the half day. Yes.
Yeah.
So this year, but that, in designing the schedule, that was a commitment.
Yeah, we all have specials at the same exact time.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if everybody could hear that. I'll say it on the microphone. Having specials at the same time is what makes that possible.
Yeah, and then how do the schools do it that have those additional sections that don't all have specials at the same time?
Typically, what they'll do is stagger so that you still have a group.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah,
So that you're on a smaller team.
thanks.
I think Ms. Schaffmeister has a question or a comment.
Thanks. Again, echo, wonderful, everything, and you answered my question. I was concerned, like, wondered what's going on with the stamina and the students that were in the full day K that needed the supports, further supports to know that they are also, their needs are being met as well this year, which is one area I had a concern. I'm wondering how, if you're considering, Todd touched on this, the impact on grade 1 curriculum. Is there going to be some kind of a sliding scale as far as the kids are going to have come so far this year, and they may come, when they come into grade 1, are they going to be at a higher level that they may be bored, or that teachers can meet their needs to encourage them to go further?
I would say yes, and the teachers are really thoughtful with their use of data. So we already have some students who come into school with really strong skills, maybe compared to a peer who's newer to school. So there's already a lot of differentiation as you see the large group character change a little bit. You know, teams would be collaborating to address student needs, and our supervisors would be coordinating and talking with teachers.
Okay, thanks. And the other question is just, I'm curious, what's the difference between, how would you describe the difference between purposeful play versus play-based learning?
The purposeful play is the name of the book that we used as an anchor. We've seen it used both ways. The way that when we were doing this work, we worked with definitions, some of which came out of like New Hampshire, which rolled out play-based learning as a state. And we created a definition for Lower Merion because what we wanted to make sure is, as a team, we all knew what we meant by that. So the idea is that in some ways, the teacher is setting up the expectation, setting up the context for play so that to make it purposeful in some way, it's aligning to kindergarten standards or maybe social emotional skills that they're teaching into, still giving kids choice to develop some of those skills with some independence. But it really is, the teacher is, I guess I would say, the architect and the engineer and also the facilitator sometimes. But within that, the students start to take more ownership, start to take more leadership. So, you know, the difference really, I think, is in how you define it. We saw a lot of definitions of it, so created our own based on the purposeful play.
But effectively, they're two terms for the same thing.
Correct.
Okay, I think that was your question, right, Mel?
Yeah.
Well,
Some can be a little
very
looser.
much. And again, thank you for your hard work and this presentation.
Okay, I will go last. I have two hopefully very quick questions. I loved the motor skills thing. I think that's a really big deal. And as the daughter of an art teacher, I just want to confirm that they are learning how to use scissors. Yeah? Okay, because that is like, I know my mom got into second, third grade and had some kids that didn't know how to use scissors appropriately, and that was a big deal, so I can go report to my mother like a good eldest child. The other thing that I was always really thinking about with championing full day K, and then as we were standing this up, was that my hope was that our teachers would be able to have more in-depth relationships with their students and more time for evaluations and stuff by virtue of having half as many students in their day. And I was just curious if you, you can say something, I don't want to put you on the spot. If your impression from the kindergarten team is that that has been an effect of having more time and having each teacher having fewer students.
Yeah, it wasn't addressed in the having fewer students part, but when we were talking about how is it going in general, like I'm thinking of the focus group, the way someone described it, and I don't want to, call them out, but it was essentially the social emotional skills and the social emotional needs of kids. You could go deeper in supporting because you had that one-on-one time with kids. It was a lot easier. The other place that I heard that, really fully was the even just trying to have intervention time when you're pushing in. When you have 2.5 hours for a day, the opportunity to grab a kiddo and here, let me help you with this, or reinforce something, to your point about getting to know your kids. Some of it's social emotional, some of it is about them as learners with that greater time and more availability and the teacher and student points of contact. It sounds like that's definitely an answer, yes. But I think that also is a good question we can use for our follow-ups.
Yeah, I appreciate the sort of approach that the team took to scheduling, in that I know when you double the amount of time you have with your students, the temptation to add a bunch more things in could have been there, and that to really focus in and say, okay, yes, we're going to give them all the specials, we're going to give them this in-depth science instruction, and then we're actually going to give ourselves enough time to fully do these things that were our aspirations, and we now actually have time to execute, and letting the schedule breathe to really have that great daily schedule and interaction with our students, I think is really fantastic. And again, I bow down, you do fantastically. Okay, do we have any comments from in person? Come on up, write your name down, and go ahead and give us your name and what town you live in the district.
Good evening, my name is Jennifer Rivera and I live in Bala Kinwood. First of all, thank you to the board, administration. I have a daughter in kindergarten, so grateful. But I did want to follow up with what Director Garrison had shared. As a parent who puts academics first, I am concerned that we don't know what are the standards for kindergartners by the end of the year. Or correct me, but I thought that was what was said. Especially me, highly invest in my daughter's education, already working on summer tutors. So I really want that clear, because I made the decision to put her in Lower Merion Kindergarten not because of a Montessori model. I really am about driving academics. So I want clarity on that. Also, assessments. How, as a parent, can I access the assessments and understand it besides just getting the report card and seeing where she falls? Because my daughter was telling me last week, hey, Mom, we had dividers in between us. So obviously they were doing math assessments, I believe, all last week, and we couldn't look at each other and all that. And I'm like, okay. I'm grateful that a community shared with me when our children are being assessed, but it was not communicated to me as a parent that, your child's being assessed in math this week. So I would like to know if we could work on communicating that better to parents in kindergarten when their children are being assessed, because especially this is new to kindergarten students. I'd explained to her why there was dividers in between you, why you couldn't talk to your friends and everything, but also how can I access it to see how she is achieving to the kindergarten standards, how she measures, for I know, okay, this is what I want you to focus on this summer with my daughter. This is how she can improve. So I think I just a little unease. Love the program. She's doing great. but I really want to see laid out the standards, the measured outcomes, and clearly, I'm glad Director Garrison asked this as well, the curriculum. Foundations, familiar with. I need to look into investigations because she just comes home with worksheets. I don't know where it comes from. But also, I know it sounds like the reading, and correct me if I'm wrong when you respond, curriculum is piecemealed. There was not one sound correct answer on what curriculum is being used. So I just want to then, if someone could answer then, and this is
Just so you know, we're going to have a whole presentation on that. That's the next
Good to know.
presentation,
Okay.
so we'll get to
Good
that.
to know. So I just want to ensure there's consistency all across the district with how teachers are teaching reading and math, and they're just not pulling from a toolbox different things. So that was unclear how it was presented, and I think as a parent it will ease me knowing there's consistency in my child's education, how I can access her assessments so I could work with her tutors or address any gaps in her education according to the kindergarten standards, whatever that is. I would like to know that as well.
Yeah, Dr. Gaudioso, do you want to address those?
Yeah, so real quick, the kindergarten standards are the standards for kindergarten. So in terms of expectations for students, they're still going to be learning the standards. Within any school year, you are going to have some students who are getting some differentiation and working at different places. In terms of our assessment system, students they come in, there's universal screening, there's opportunity for them to have a measure taken and see where they are, and then supports are provided for students who need some additional and for those who may get a little bit further. In terms of where do we land at the end of the year, or what are the changes and expectations for the end of the year, some of the outcomes, if there's content that students, for example, in science, new PA Steels, in terms of working our way through, getting a sense of the match for students. So that question, when it was, what are the outcomes for the end of the year? It's a big question because they are going to be the kindergarten standards across every single subject. So there's not one answer to it, but we do have some resources we could share. Dr. Martin Patone is going to share some of the foundations update, which is a big, huge part of our literacy program. And then when you think about, and I'm sure, talk about the idea of structured literacy, there is a lot that goes into a literacy block. There is fluency, there's comprehension, there is foundational phonics, all of which need different approaches. So I'm going to let...
Can I just clarify a couple of things real quick? So, Ms. Gaudioso, sorry, I was calling Jennifer. The spelled out for full day K, you can go on our website right now and see every single section. So what's in reading, what's in writing, what's in math, what's in science, and that will give you kind of the big takeaways for what is goals to be achieved. Yeah.
And the assessments are also on the website. So, some of that, if we go to the curriculum website, you'll see some of the assessments listed as well. So that can be something that we can share with our kindergarten team, because I think what's really good feedback for us is we have new parents who are new to school-age parenting and school-age resources, so even having our kindergarten team push out some clarification for folks, we can absolutely take a look at that.
And then two more follow-ups, just to clarify Ms. Ferrier's question. So the DIBELS, when you're doing those types of testing, do you send information to the principals, send out information to the parents that type of testing is going on that week in school? Because I know we got, it's been a while since my kids were in kindergarten, but when they were, we did get a report on the testing, and it also showed where their highs and lows were in reading. Or DIBELS, not reading.
So some of those types of tests students are taking a little bit at a time. Like might not necessarily be a whole class administration. So kids might experience it on different days. There's usually a range of time given when you look at the testing window that's on the website. And I think our fine folks here are going to be in conferences tomorrow sharing information with parents about how students have done on different things, what they've had administered, and that sort of thing. And that's our conferences are even imminent.
One of my kids' kindergarten teachers is sitting right there. Right? Okay, great. So look for it at conferences. It's on the website. You can also ask for all of it. I'm just making sure people know where to find this.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think it's also, you know, if people aren't knowing that, then we can do something to get information out so they feel a little more comfortable with what's where. Yep, appreciate it.
Okay, great. We have a couple of, before we get to foundations, okay, I'm going to get Ms. Garrison, and then we have some online comments, and then we'll get to our foundations update.
I just wanted to dovetail off of Ms. Rivera's comments. And I don't think we're looking for it to have everything, but just broadly, like concrete examples. Is the expectation when you leave kindergarten that you know all 26 letters and at least those foundational phonic sounds, the short A, blah, 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 blah. Not all the 44 sounds, but the first 26 sounds.
For sure. Yeah. And we also have our report card is on the website that has the list of skills across subject areas that can also spell out some more of that.
Right.
For
And
sure.
I think the same thing for math. Is the expectation you can count to 100? Before it was 20. Now is it 100 or 150, 200? Like those are the kinds of concrete things I think a lot of parents want to know. In reference to the Dibbles test, you can just look that up online and get the information about Dibbles.
If I may, I think there's a simple answer, kind of somewhat simple to your question, and I think you asked great questions. The PEA core standards are on PDA, but we also have I-CAN statements, which are literally, the I-CAN statements are in our curriculum. The teachers will talk about in this. When you go to parent-teacher conferences, these are things we're working on for our website as well. In this trimester, these are the I-CAN statements, the standards that you work towards, their end-of-the-year standards. So to your point and your question, the PA core standards say, in foundational literacy, by the end of the year, here's what your child should be able to do. In reading, by the end of the year, here's what your child should be able to do. They're very clear. They're on the PD website, but we also have them in our curriculum. And your teachers, if you hear I-CAN statements, that is literally the PA core standard put into here's what they can do and to what degree at this point in the year. So that's the most concise as to, that's very clear and it's in our curriculum. When we say curriculum, it's not a program. So that's two different things. So it's not, it sounds piecemeal, but it's not. We have a full curriculum that we then put in specific resources for specific areas of literacy. So unlike math where they buy the program and it is also their curriculum. So that's where it sounds a little different. So that's why it might have come across that way. And again, we can speak to any of those areas. One of the things where possibly, so again, enhancement with the getting the I-CAN statements per trimester would be a good start for kindergarten in progress. And the other part that you asked about in terms of the assessment calendar is on our website, the overall assessment calendar for the district, but specifically for kindergarten, there is a K-4 assessment calendar that's internal. Your teachers can, if you reach out, and we can make a note to say, moving forward in a week where you're going to send home, here's what we're going to be doing this week or this month, just make you have just to have an awareness. Dibbles are screeners. They happen 3 times a year, K through 2, and there's multiple subtests in Dibbles. They're timed assessments. So in light of this, I can maybe send a little verbiage to support, but you'll be hearing that information at conferences. So we do have that information. I just want you to know, and to your point, Dibbles is online. It's a free resource.
From a parent's perspective.
Correct, yes, it is.
Every parent wants the best for their child.
100%.
And some parents don't know what the expectations are.
Yep.
And so that's why we want it to be concrete and clear. These are the expectations. When your child comes in, this is what we're expecting them to be able to do. When they're finished kindergarten and they're going to first grade, these are the expectations. They might not make all of them, but at least if it's not like, you know, some...
It's not nebulous.
Right, exactly. It needs to be concrete for parents, I think, so that they can help their children. Everybody's not going to be able to afford a tutor, you know, or Kumon or Mathnasium or all the other types of resources that we have here. But we can also give those parents like, hey, you can go to your library and get A, B, and C to help support your child's academic development.
And we can send the PD site, which is open to parents and so forth, and have
I
resources.
love that communication of just, you have the information, just adding it in the weekly. And also, I think this could be, if we wanted to add some of this into the new parent orientation that each school does. Were you thinking, were we having mind meld? Okay, good. I'm glad that you also, in addition to teaching 5 and 6-year-olds, have worked on your telepathy. And so I think that would be a really good place to put that. And now we are, before you hit foundations, we're going to get our community comments from online. Didn't forget.
Rebecca Brodsky of Ardmore, how do the full-day K enrollment numbers look for the upcoming 25-26 school year?
Where'd you find the report?
Joanna Stone of Marion.
Sorry, before you, I don't think we do, like, the enrollment numbers are projected as part of an enrollment study that we don't do every year. Like, we did that.
She may be looking, because we have had K1 registration's been open, so.
I don't know that we're, Dr. Gaddiosa, has our kindergarten enrollment for next year already opened for this year?
Yes, people are registering.
It's a Ms. Schaefer question.
Oh, Ms. Schaefer, I apologize. Do we feel like we can say anything one way or the other?
Well, I can say we opened our registration a little bit earlier this year than last year, so we have more registrations that have been confirmed. Right now, we're at roughly 260 across the district in kindergarten that have been confirmed to date, across all our buildings.
And is that pretty consistent what we've seen in the past, or do we not have that information? It's still too early?
Like I said, it's this would be, we opened a little bit earlier. This is the second year of full-day K. It looks like some are tracking slightly higher than potential projection, where numbers are projected to land, but I think it's still too early to tell.
Okay, thank you.
So just a question, on our website, to just tie a bow around everything, the elementary report card, is that our report card? Because that would be, all of your standards would be right there for everybody.
Correct, yeah, so the report card is there.
So,
So
I mean, if you get to our website, you get into the elementary school, look at the kindergarten report card, and that's what
that's it, yeah.
I mean, that should reflect the PA standards, and that's what we're after at the end of the day.
Yep.
So.
I think it was, you said it first, we need to ensure that we're communicating, and ensuring we're communicating. It's there in different places and just letting everybody know. And let's be honest, this is coming from a parent who still can't get half days right. So over communication is great and wonderful.
And we're on board. We were just having a sidebar as we were sitting and listening. We can share it at the orientation the year before. Some teachers do put when the tests are coming up in their newsletters, but maybe not everybody does that. So those reminders that we can share with grade level teams, we're happy to do, for sure.
Great, Ms. Buckman.
Yeah, I appreciate the comment.
Joanna Stone of Marion, great to see the district committing to Desmos Math. It is a comprehensive interactive program that balances fluency and deeper understanding for students. Michelle McGill of Ballackinwood, do you have a formal communication tool for kindergarten? The high school level has a newsletter and weekly email from the HSA. What is the formal way of sharing information with kindergarten parents that's consistent among all schools?
I don't think there's one that's across all schools. I think each teacher individually sends home, I believe my experience has been a weekly email from the teacher, but I think each teacher does it differently. And then there's an HSA newsletter for each elementary school that wouldn't be separate from the kindergarten. And then often the school administration itself sends home the Thursday envelope. Is it still Thursday? Thursday envelope.
It's not an envelope though, it's an email.
Yes, it's a digital envelope. It's called the Thursday envelope.
Right.
That was,
And Belmont Hills, Ms. Kleiber does the email in lieu of the HSA, but she does her bark bites every week, but the principals send home weekly.
yes. So I think there is not one that's specifically for kindergarten, but there are lots for the individual ones, and then there are per classroom.
Ms. McGill has a follow-up question. I'm asking the administration about communication. Can they please answer the question? So the answer is that at the school level, schools communicate. The emails come from the principals, the HSAs, and then teachers communicate with their own classrooms. there's not one district-wide kindergarten email.
Correct. Is that everyone? Wonderful. All right, Dr. Martin Patone, you're up. Or Scott had something to say, Mr. Weinstein?
Well, I wanted to transition. I wanted to thank.
Oh, I apologize.
I consider myself a kindergarten expert, not because of the seat I'm sitting in, not because I was a former principal in elementary school, but because I'm married to a kindergarten teacher. And I would say that teaching is hard all over the place in today's time, and you don't want to compare, but if you did, and would say what the hardest, I might say working with 5-year-olds every day and hearing different stories every day. So I want to thank Ms. Mancini and Ms. Lawson for your time tonight and all of your colleagues for the hard work they're doing to make this year a success, and formally dismiss you before our next presentation. Yeah. And now I want to turn it over to, thank you both. Ms. Martin Patone, this presentation was alluded to no fewer than 17 times before we were talking, so I'm excited to get to it. And I would say Dr. Gaudioso did a good job giving Dr. Martin Patone credit. When she came into the district, this program didn't exist, and she brought this into the district to, I think, great success. And I'm pleased and honored to turn it over to Dr. Martin Patone to talk about the foundation's update.
Thank you. Kristen left, but she made this cup for me, so Jason reminded me that's how awesome they were when we decided to do this. They were all in, and I love it, so they put the fun in foundations. I want to just say thank you again. I think the questions are extremely valuable for us as we learn and grow and continue to improve, and there's something we could do immediately. We were even just talking because we do meet with the grade levels for curriculum along the year as well. So there's multiple layers of conversation. And I just want to say thank you again for coming up in the questions, and we'll make sure that you have what you need. Foundations update. So as we go further, we are in our 3rd year of the implementation of foundations. I absolutely had in my notes before the previous presentation to give a huge dose of gratitude to the educational community, LMSD. They have done a great job, as well as our leadership teams in our buildings and our consultant Brooke Workman, to make sure that this program and the implementation has shown success. I have seen across multiple reports in DIBBLES, Amplified Data Warehouse, that we are trending in a positive direction. I'll weave in the question about how can we adjust? How do we know? We assess at the beginning of every year, and when you see that assessment calendar and that's communicated, you will see that's how we know what we have, and we adjust accordingly. So thank you to all of those people that have been part of this implementation. And thank you to the board, because you approved it to move forward. When we originally presented, this was the slide that began the presentation. What the problem we were trying to solve was really just to bring in that structured literacy piece and ensure that we were addressing those encoding, decoding needs, the handwriting, and also doing it in a systematic and sequential manner. So, and along with that, providing this thoughtful layer of PD so that the instruction was sound and fidelity to a program. The following slides will show and speak to briefly the curriculum, the implementation, and the materials that we use that go along with foundations. Now, foundations, when we talk about curriculum, that program is their curriculum. So that is one and the same. I will show you the identified skills and concepts taught in each level. It has a very detailed teacher edition. It is what's considered scripted with direct instruction. We will talk about how we implemented it in our Tier 1 and Tier 2 classrooms, and again, how the comprehensive materials work together in tandem as you go through the tiers. Each level of curriculum for foundations is a year long, so it goes throughout the year. The foundational skills are in line with the PA Core foundational skills. There's systematic and sequential. And the instruction, you will see, I'll talk about how the instructional design supports the concepts and skills in reading and writing. And the strategies for success are definitely modeling and scaffold instruction, embedded formative assessment, and a metacognitive approach. So students are always being asked, why do you think that is? What do you think about your thinking, basically, and your learning? So that's an active part of this process. When we first brought in the program for foundations, We had the committee, and then we brought the program forward. We were questioned about the alignment to the science of reading. This is right off the Foundation's website. It is definitely specifically aligned. Just to pull the verbiage is to put it simply, the science of reading shows us what works in reading instruction. That entails using a structured literacy approach, like Foundations, which is effective for all students, but especially beneficial for those who struggle, and it is grounded in the science of reading. So if you want to read that further, that is on the Foundation's website. Student focus is in Tier 1 and Tier 2. In K3, it's a prevention program. We use it in K2, and in 3, the handwriting piece, and we do have students that will pull in Tier 2 that are demonstrating need. The group size, we do it whole class, Tier 1. The Tier 2 is in addition to the Tier 1. That is in the general education classroom. Tier 2 could be a push-in within the classroom or pull out. The instructor for Tier 1 is the general education teacher. We've trained every one of our teachers. We'll speak to that in a moment. And in Tier 2, it is usually the interventionist or reading specialist. Tier 1, 30 minutes daily for fidelity of the program, and Tier 2, you add on to that 30 minutes. The concepts and skills in the program are highlighted on the slide. I just want to speak to, we talked about the phonemic awareness and some of the subsets of that Dr. Gaudioso showed you. We still use Heggerty because it is strong in that area, and Foundations, while it's a wonderful program, it doesn't address phonemic awareness to that degree. So we kept that in our literacy program, and I'm really intentional and thoughtful about keeping Heggerty in K1. And it's built into our overall curriculum documents, which we will show you. Writing is definitely a part of this program and those motor skills. The instructional design, you're going to see that it integrates skill instruction so that a daily lesson teaches and then reinforces. There's constantly reinforcing because this is a program, it's the one program in literacy that teaches to mastery. It actively engages students. They're up, they're down, multi-sensory approach. It provides multiple opportunities for skills practice and mastery application, and it constantly monitors student learning through the formative assessments in the lesson and also throughout the week. 2 areas on the other port, teacher and parent guardian support. Fun Hub is an area where the teachers have a Foundations learning community and they get to talk together, and it's the digital part of this resource. But there is a home packet that goes home, so you should look for that, and I'm going to speak to that next. The home packet, it gets sent home the first week of the new unit. It is not required, it's suggested, so it is not required homework, it is suggested for reinforcement. It informs parents and guardians what is happening in the classroom for Foundations, and it just provides those suggested home activities to reinforce learning. If you have a kindergartner and you have a second grader, the units are different length. So your kindergartner might come home with a packet, and then you might not see one for a few weeks, where your second grader, you might get 2 packets coming home because their units are shorter in duration. So it's not going to be lockstep that they all come home. I would say that if you have a question about the home support packets, please contact your teacher. Some teachers email them, some send them home hard copy. If you have a question where you did something with your student, with your child, and you want to send it in and just get the teacher's thoughts, that's okay. So I would say definitely communicate with your teacher, and that is something that should be coming home, K through 2. When we talk about implementation, the professional learning is crucial. So along with this program, we continue to learn, as you're hearing in terms of the conversations and questions. We're in year 3. So our target audience is K2 teachers. We train every new teacher. In the summer, we find out who the new teachers are. FDK, we ran trainings all throughout the summer. I'm going to give an additional shout out to Brooke Workman, who's our consultant and a parent in Lower Merion, who has been a partner and teammate and part of our community with Foundations. We also have phenomenal teacher leaders who help one another. We have a professional learning model that is personalized and customized. We work with each building so that Brooke works with the leadership teams, also goes in, works with the literacy specialists, and in the grade levels, right now she's working with 3 and 4, but when we were doing the Foundations K2, She could go in and work with any grade level that needed support or teacher to the degree of support they needed it. And they would say, can I see a modeled lesson? Can we go through a walkthrough? It was truly customized. We have a system in place where we have modules and asynchronous sessions already built on our teacher and learning site so that teachers can access those in addition to the professional learning community that they have through Foundations. We also offer Zoom sessions, and we have shared Google Drives where Foundations, materials, and resources are housed. So those things have been built up over the last few years. So when we talk curriculum, this is an internal facing document. We talked about those I can statements, learning targets. That's to the left so that we're always ensuring here's what we're saying they can do, how do we know they can do it and to what degree, and then we have our formative assessments of learning so that we would know that. What we did is in our curriculum documents for ELA so that there was cohesion and everything was in one place for teachers for planning, we took the part of Foundations and built it into those documents so that it would be in one place for instructional coherence and planning and pacing, so that even in a building, someone could go in and say, okay, so everyone's around this place, we can have these PLC conversations. When we do implementation, you saw this schedule articulation. We have one for every grade level. For K, we went and revisited to ensure 30 minutes is for program fidelity. It's called a no pull out because you want to ensure that tier 1 instruction. However, if we have an ELD student that needs additional support, they may be pulled out but be getting the same instruction, or they might push in during that time. So that was the wiggle room. You see Haggerty lessons in there. You also see the interactive read aloud whole group mini lessons, and then the purposeful play, but it is built right into our schedule to adhere to fidelity. When we talked about an implementation, the other part of that is what is our vision of excellence? To your questions, right? How do we know this is working? What should it look like when someone walks into a classroom for teachers and for students? So that is also a key document that we shared with teachers. We continue to reference. Administrators have access to. Everything is hyperlinked. It's linked to the domains so that if Brooke goes in to work with someone, they can say, hey, I'd really like to focus on this area so that I can enhance my instructional practice. She'll either model or she'll give them feedback. There's instructional rounds, and this is used in formal evaluations as well to support adherence to the program. So new teacher, experienced teacher, it's a common document. These are all of the resources that, thank you, we have and are extremely grateful for. We have level K to level 2. We have the progress monitoring built into these programs. The supplemental resources, we have Ready to Rise, we use in our summer program, and we also train any teacher that's going to teach the SPIES program, we use Ready to Rise. We have the cursive writing in grade 3. We purchased those books. We have the Geodes library, which are decodable readers that build up background knowledge, and they're good for our ELD students as well. We have the Foundation readers, which are our decodable readers. Fun and Foundations is the intervention model in Tier 2, and we have Fun Hub. To the right are just some more detailed descriptions of those resources. So it's, for that area, it's pretty comprehensive. Just wanted to let you know, too, that as students move up, we also have Just Words, which is the continuation of this type of instruction in Tier 2. Our literacy specialists are trained, and that is provided in Tier 2. So it's not for an evaluation, we get it in Tier 2 and continue that learning. How do we know? Again, we keep coming back to, is it aligned to the standards? Is it addressing those foundational core skills for K through 2? We continue to ensure there's alignment. Also, when we looked at this program, we went to the Florida Center for Reading Research, and we looked at the ESSA research in Title I schools, and we looked at the DIBELS subtests that they use to show evidence of success. We also use those and more. So we have LMSD local data, which you saw some today that Dr. Godioso had shared. I pulled a couple of different reports for you that are a different view. When you go and link it, we have data, but DIBELS also has its own warehouse that have phenomenal reports, so we can talk with teachers for some of what you were discussing with how is my child doing in terms of the progress. This is a letter naming fluency subtest. This is this year for kindergarten. I pulled letter naming fluency because that was a key indicator in that research for literacy success. So you can see by those graphs, we are where we need to be substantially. That is also part of our if-then decision-making tree when we do assessments for interventions. The other one is word reading fluency, the beginning of the year and the middle of the year. And again, you can see that they have progressed in this area. And these are the actual DIBELS reports from the DIBELS warehouse. So I just wanted to highlight 2 of the subtests that we look at. There aren't numerous. To see is this working, and they do drill down. So each building has access to their building and their classrooms. I'm just giving you an overall district view. And that is it. Any questions?
Fantastic, thank you. Any of my colleagues have burning thoughts and questions? Okay, I'm gonna not go to Curry or Kim first because you always get in with the big questions. Todd, do you want to go first?
I just had one short one.
Great.
Tier 2 support, you said, is offered to 30, in the lowest 30th percentile of students, and they get an extra 30 minutes of small group or one-on-one reading 3 to 5 times a week. That's 30th percentile of what population? 30th percentile of LMSD students or some national pool? So that's a third, if it's LMSD, it's a third of our students are getting that additional support?
We do pretty well, to answer your question, in terms of for Title I, we look at 20%. So if we needed to extend that scope to get the level need, we could. However, when we look, that's what's recommended by foundations. That's what foundation says in Tier 1 to 30%. We look across our data, and anyone that's intensive or strategic, we're taking a look at, and we're also ensuring that even for foundations, when you give the unit assessments, it's that 80-20 rule. So we use that 20% of the students. How are they doing? Do we need to do a reteach? That's the program recommendations that you saw.
I'm just trying to get a sense of how many of our students are actually getting that tier level 2 support. Is those 20% of our students, or?
I would say it would vary per building. It would be hard to say it across the district. Here's what I can answer definitively to you is that any student who is in need, we show up across with multiple criteria, especially with this, we do provide Tier 2 literacy support. So when you look at your overall data, and I'm not a mathematician, so you can correct me or Jason Lilly, how we look at it is any student, whether it be 30%, 20%, it indicates different things. It definitely indicates if we see this 20% need, yes, you're getting literacy support, you're in intensive and strategic. Not only that, do we need to do a reteach in the program or a double dose? We look at it that deeply. To answer your question, do they get literacy support? Yes. Do they all get 30 minutes in addition to the regular one if they're intensive? Strategic, it depends. What they need is they might get 3 days a week, 30 minutes in addition to, and they get push in during small group instruction. So we have various ways to lend that support.
Sorry, Dr. Martin-Patone, when you say 20% of what measure? That's
so
what
on
I'm
the
trying to clarify.
foundation trackers, that's one assessment. We look to see that 80% of the students are where they need to be, and the 20% that may not be there, we look to that in the daily classroom.
Okay, so it's a foundations assessment. It's
correct.
Okay.
And this is from foundations. This isn't Lower Merion saying 30%. That's what foundations recommends. You're asking, do we have 30% of our students getting Tier 1 support?
Tier 2.
Tier 2 support. I don't believe it's that high.
So I guess the other way perhaps of asking my question is, do you feel like you have enough of the support structures in place for the number of children who could benefit from it?
Yes. So that is a really good question, because part of me wants to say we would always love more support because then you could do even better. So I do feel that all of the resources we have, we use them extremely effectively. At times in different buildings and different grade levels. Does that mean we have to be really strategic and creative? Yes. Thank you for rephrasing that, because it gets caught up in the percentage.
I have kind of a follow-up question, which is how many reading specialists do we have?
At elementary?
Yes.
12.
And so I'm guessing is there 2 per building? Is that how it works? And does that cover, like, the 2 that are per each building, are they able to accomplish what they need to? Do they, are they able to use their resources and?
Right, so in our Title I buildings, which we have 3 targeted Title I buildings, we have 2 reading specialists per building, literacy specialists. So yes, they do get to those students. And then in Title I buildings, we have Title I assistants that also offer additional support. We also have IST, which are interventionists. So it is a combination of how we utilize those resources to address the needs in each building. And we make sure with full day K that someone's getting into kindergarten every day. So it's a combination of those supports.
Thank you.
Because we have different sized buildings, and we have the same number of intervention or literacy specialists, do we ever say float one of the Belmont Hills literacy specialists to Penn Win, or is that not what we need, or is stuff kind of balanced?
So I'm going to say this, in ELD, we always look at lists and levels. It's based on need. If you have a significant, lots of level 1 life population, we have to move an ELD teacher to go to that building for a level of need. Every year we do look at, although Belmont Hills is small, the level of need may be greater than in Gladwin. I'm not saying that is, but that is what we look at every year.
It's an absolutely fair point.
This is not a great time during the year or during the summer, because that's always the apprehension, definitely with ELD and with literacy, to say where's our level of need and how are we addressing it, and can we keep it as it is, or do we need additional, to the other question, interventionists to lend support? So Penn Win, for instance, does have that additional.
I appreciate the dynamic consideration. Did you have more questions?
Thank you.
Curry?
And I don't know if I've completely formulated this question. So all the DIBEL scores and all the different scores that you put in here, does that go into a student's overarching dashboard? And then you said it really fast, but it was a really important point. You're pulling the scores because what they tell us is how successful a child's going to be in reading 3 years from now. Mm-hmm. And so again, when we're looking at our kids, we want to understand, where are they? How are they doing? And then where's the opportunities that we can kind of support and foster? And, does everybody have the supports as a parent, or, an adult, is the kid's adult, to really be able to say, this is why I'm looking at this and this is how we're going. Are we going into that depth and giving our adults the dashboard for each kid, so they kind of know where to lean in and how to do those tools? Because so much of this is about what the parents get trained on and the skills that the parents do. Schools can do so much, but it is still not that much time. It's not a lot of time that you're doing reading, and reading is really hard for the brain to pick up. So yeah, sorry.
Yes, so I would say yes, I brought, we have a decision tree, if then, for the letter naming, and then they'll get interventions. Yes, so Linkit is a data warehouse where you'll see the numbers, the overall. What I'm showing you is Amplify, which has a multitude of in-depth reports that are available for student data, classroom data, and then district. We're looking at a lot of those reports more deeply because it gives a more in-depth visual, especially in all of those sub areas. So yes, all the literacy specialists have access to the DIBELS reports, and the teachers do as well. So if they need to pull a report and they can't get it, the literacy specialist shares, or I can link it. Those reports are pulled to link it. You're just not getting the as in-depth view of those reports as we can get from Amplify. So it's like the story behind the numbers. So those are the reports I gather.
Great. And so going back to the parent support or the adult support that's at home, all those pieces, is there a reason why just by instinct, it would tell me that if we printed out those packets and handed it to every single kid to take home with them, and we're able to say here's the areas you need to work on, kiddo, and then send a packet home with the parents, is there more evidence that having those tools in your hand as an adult that's sitting at the kitchen table readily and not online, is that?
So I'm gonna, just for clarity.
Yeah.
So DIBELS are quick screeners, they're timed. So what we also looked at is untimed, because you have behavioral that sometimes impedes the results. So literacy specialists, these are quick screeners that then we pause and say, what are we seeing untimed? Then we look at letter naming fluency, and that becomes an intervention that we then provide for a certain amount of time in all these areas. That is something that can happen in tier 1 or tier 2. What we be providing is not, that Dibbles doesn't give you resources in terms, they're not a program, they're an assessment, they're a screener, right? What we do provide is those additional, or if there's needed, activities that would possibly reinforce the area that we're showing need based on these assessments. And those usually happen in the classroom. You're getting the foundation reinforcement packets that go along with foundations. So parent-teacher conferences are usually that time to say, here's what we're seeing as a possible area of need, here's how we're addressing it in the school, here are some things that may be helpful for you to do at home.
Great, and I'm just wondering, and I don't remember what slide it is.
But it doesn't come from Dibbles, I just
but
wanted
the
that
home
clear.
support packet, I'm just wondering, it's not always the kids that are in need or the kids that are gifted. It's the kids that are in the general bracket that sometimes we forget to like focus on as well. And so what I'm wondering is there a reason why we wouldn't just send those packets home?
We do, we send it for everyone.
You do? Okay, I thought you said you physically.
No, I'm sorry, if I do try to be mindful of time and talk.
Yeah, no, I thought you said sometimes they get it electronically.
Everybody sends it home. Some teachers have shared, because I meet with all grade levels at different points in the year, that they started to email it to parents because parents found that was better than if it went home in the packet.
Perfect, thank you.
Lost. Yeah, everyone gets that.
Kim, I was going to you next. Don't worry. You're there.
Well, you know I would not allow you to forget me.
I do know that about you, my friend.
Thank you for the very thorough presentation. I do think that we should define what Title I is, because many parents may not know what that means. It may mean absolutely nothing to them. And I'm curious, are we still evaluating children in kindergarten for gifted? And if we are, what percentage of our students are in the gifted program at kindergarten?
So I can't answer your question about gifted because that's pupil services, and I'll defer to Dr. Godioso or Jason Lilly. I will say that U.S. Title I. Title I is our federal program. We have 3 targeted Title I schools. Our buildings are based, the formula is free and reduced lunch, qualifies the building, and then we have assessments that's where percentiles come in that we look in terms of qualifying students. Those are the buildings that they have an additional Title I assistant, and that is covered by federal funding.
Oh, are we potentially going to lose that?
That I don't have the answer as of right now. We have our Title I funding and it's intact. I'm actually starting to complete an audit and then from federal programs, and we're already prepping for our non-PO meaningful consultation. So it's as is, status quo as far as I'm aware right now.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries, yeah. And gifted, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question.
Sarah?
Thanks. As far as the Title I assistants and IST go, I know you mentioned that all of the classroom teachers are trained in foundations, whether it's in the summer or throughout the school year. Are those staff trained as well in foundations?
Title I teachers are our literacy specialists, and the Title I assistants, yes. Everyone's trained, even anytime there's a new teacher, anytime there's any teacher that's going to do foundations, and then we have Brooke go follow up to ensure fidelity to the program.
Great. And then as far as just to kind of give everyone, community members, a sense of home packets, I know you said that it depends on the grade level, how often they're sent home, units are different lengths of time. At this point in the year, should we expect that our students have gotten through 2 units, have gotten through 10 units? Like, how many units are there in a year?
So in kindergarten, your first unit's really extremely long, and they have less units than level 1 and level 2. Level 2, they're around the same. We usually get through about 10 or 11 units in a year. I could look right in the pacing guides and kind of give you an idea of where they would be. I would say it's a simple communication, though, truly, just to say if it was coming home, you would know what unit they're on and for the duration it would be. And and if you just ask your classroom teacher, but when I go, what's great about building that in the curriculum documents, I can go in each of those grade levels and see where should they all be and give that to you. I would say we're midway in the year, so it should probably be around midway.
So if we've only gotten 1 or 2, you might want to reach out to your teacher. If you've gotten 4 to 5, you're good.
Yeah, I would say reach out to your teacher for sure, so we get those lines of communications going. I've reiterated that as well, and that's where I had the conversation where some teachers were like, oh, I switched to email because my parents said that they preferred it that way, and others are sending hard copies home with the students. So, and again, I want to stress that that is suggested activities. It is not required homework. I don't want to add on to anyone's plate who's extremely, families are busy, but absolutely reach out to your classroom teacher.
And then, sorry, just one more. For the students that get the tier 2 support, is that during WIN time?
It could
Or is
be,
that
or it
during a
could-
different time of day?
So again, it could be during WIN time, or it could be during, it's a push-in, pull-out program, so they could push in during small group instruction. If it's for writing, they could push in during when they're doing writing groups. It depends what they're pushing in for. So it would always, if it's push-in, it's to support that instruction. And with Title I, the beauty of, in the Title I schools, you can sit with, it's called incidental exposure. As long as I have one Title I student I'm working with, I could take 4 or 5 others and work with them as well. So we expand. When we push in, we actually get more support in that opportunity. And then pull out would happen on a time once they got over core instruction, and that could be for more intensive level of support.
Thanks.
You got it.
Just want to add one thing to sort of, in a way, like tie up in a bow, as Dr. Mussolini mentioned. I think while I totally understand that different parents may prefer different sort of mediums to see the information, I think it would be really helpful if there was sort of a standardized, this is when this stuff is going to be coming home, it's going to be paper form, just because that way everyone sort of has the same information. And even if it is supplemental, it's so helpful to see it in physical form, especially when your kids are so young that they can't really fill in the blanks if you ask questions, or and I just would like to make that sort of request to consider that maybe putting a hard copy version of these things on a somewhat of a schedule, that we get these things, regularly. I think it could go a long way also in terms of communication, because sometimes it's hard to know what you don't know to ask about. And like I said, I'm sort of in it with I have little kids too, and it's our teachers are incredible. My kids have had incredible kindergarten, it's the same one, but the incredible kindergarten teacher twice, with different kids, very different people. And the teacher has been wonderful, so it's not at all, to suggest that teachers aren't meeting the needs. It's that people are so busy. We are so busy. We have so many things. Many of us are juggling multiple kids. So I think having that as a guaranteed, we're going to be getting this coming home, it's going to be coming on a sort of regular schedule, would be really helpful.
Right. That is the expectation, and I'll say it publicly. I've emailed it a few times. That is the expectation. I would communicate with your teacher. What I do want to stress, though, it won't be, oh, I'm in Kenwood, you're in Gladwin, we should both get in on the same day. It won't happen that way, so I just want to make that really clear. It might be that my needs in my classroom, I might have had to do a reteach this week, so you're going to get that maybe a half a week or a week behind when you get it, but you all should be receiving it. Hard copy was the method that went. I think teachers are trying to be, respond to the needs of their parents and their families as well. And when that request was made, that might be a couple of classrooms. It's just, it was shared with me, so I wanted to communicate that your teacher would have communicated that with you if it was coming home via email, because it would have been based upon a family request. But we will continue to reiterate that message, for sure.
Okay, I'll jump in very, very quickly. No questions. I just wanted to say, from my anecdata with experiencing it as a parent, with talking to kindergarten teachers at lots of different buildings, with touring the different buildings and dropping in on classrooms and talking to kindergartners, this has been a well-loved from both directions program, and the kids are really liking it, having a lot of success with it. And so I thank you for bringing it to us. It's really fantastic. I wanted to highlight something that, as someone who is a board member, when I talk to people in our community and when I talk to people all over, people complain that children are not instructed in cursive, I wanted to highlight the fact that students in Lower Merion School District receive cursive instruction in 3rd grade. I want to shout out Amy Avellino, who taught my kid how to write cursive, and it was great. So just that is something that our students are getting, and I just wanted to highlight that because I know that has a disproportionate presence in the zeitgeist. Do we have any in-person comments? Anybody want to talk about foundations? Okay, do we have any online comments? Ms. Buckman.
So we have a couple comments from Lorraine Carter of Ardmore. Does Foundation support Tier 3 students, or is there a Wilson version that can be used to support literacy at that level? Generally speaking, would Tier 2 be equivalent to basic and Tier 3 to below basic? Do students with an IEP access any aspect of Foundations? If not, what is available to them similar to what Tier 1 and Tier 2 students use? She also asks, if a student has an IEP, can they access a reading specialist? And relative to Title I, has LMSD heard from the federal government about the impending status of this funding, which I think you touched on that one.
Okay, I'm going to try to answer them, and if I miss something, I know Crystal or Lorraine will tell me. So, here's in Tier 1, it's preventative. So if we have students in kindergarten or 1st grade and 2nd grade, those unit trackers and those assessments, we progress monitor that to see, and then we intensify the level of intervention, which would be Tier 2 and that bridge. If a student is still struggling and needs a more intensive level of intervention, we wouldn't go right to Wilson. Wilson is your most significant level of this program, and Wilson does not recommend providing that tier, that level of significance. It's very rare that we give that to a student in kindergarten or 1st grade or 2nd grade. They usually say to wait until about 2nd grade or beyond to first go either to the other level or interventions. And we're trying to do everything we can prior to getting a student to evaluation and getting an IEP. The whole idea is, and especially in the MTSS framework, is to provide those interventions and those programs to be more preventative, so that we don't have to have a student get an IEP in order to get a program that they can get in Tier 1 or Tier 2. That was the premise of this. Because previously, years ago, if you had an encoding, decoding need, it would only be able to be addressed in this program, which was in special education. So now it's in our reg ed, it's preventative. And just for clarity, Wilson is available, but it isn't, we don't provide that without going through that additional evaluation and all those interventions first. And then it would be provided, like it would become a bigger conversation and possibly in 2 or 3, grade 2 or 3. And I think I answered the federal programs. Was there another question?
Do students with IEPs have access to reading specialists?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and we have students with IEPs that are getting Tier 2 instruction and using a Ready to Rise intervention piece. And then if they do get evaluated and would get an IEP, we work with the special education supervisors, the literacy special, and the special education teacher to say, what is the best piece of this program and what interventions have been working? So there's a lot of conversation and coordination around that.
And also Ms. Schaffmeister has a question.
I apologize, Mel, go for it.
Oh, thanks, no problem. Thanks. I just had a question about, again, the take-home part of it. How are we supporting students who live in a ESL household?
So those packets should still go home if you need that, if it's multilingual household, and if your student has an ELD teacher, the ELD teacher would support those needs. You would contact your ELD teacher to support those needs, because sometimes they are the teacher providing the program and the instruction. So that would again be a communication, but we do that.
Would that be the kind of thing, Amy, that some of your fantastic translation software would be able to, like, they would take the packets and if the parents were non-English speakers, could have that translated into their native language? Or is that a step too far?
We could try it, so we'd have to validate the accuracy of all the translation for that. If we needed it, we've gone to Amy The idea though is, we are teaching them English, so the idea is we try to see what is best for the students, for the parent, the family member, we could get it translated for them to support
Right, that's
the
what I'm
student.
saying, is that if we had a student,
Yes.
regardless of whether the
cover
student
page we
was
could.
an English speaker or a non-native English speaker, if the parent or guardian was a non-native English speaker, that's what I'm talking about, having the supportive guiding piece so that the parent can still know what the child should be doing in terms of the activity.
And I think that's one of the board has approved Talking Points, which is a great translation texting tool that the parents and guardians that are not English speakers are able to communicate directly back and forth with teachers and with the ELD teachers. So they, excuse me, they can use that to ask questions and also send direct messages home to, mom of student in their native language to say, hey, this is coming home, this is what it is. And so the ELD teachers, who, by the way, did an amazing job at our ELD family night last week, there's great pictures up on the website, they're really the hands-on communicators back and forth with those parents and guardians.
Right, and I oversee ELD, so that's a constant communication with those ELD teachers. If they need that, it comes to me or it goes to Amy, and we work with the ELD teacher to get what they need to have translated. So yes, the short answer is yes, if that was a request from a family, it would come to us and we could make that.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and just as you're communicating with your teacher team, that might be just a thing to remind the teachers to just like poke into their, if they have any families that are using this, to remind me the name of the, Talking Points, my brain said Talking Points, that makes sense. If they have any families that are using Talking Points for communication, to just be like, here's a reminder, this is a thing that's gonna come home. If you feel like if you'd like help in getting it translated, I'll put you in touch with help getting that translated, or here is the general instruction. That would be, since we have these resources, I think that would be a great service.
Sure.
That is fantastic. We did the board, we did in person. Are we finished with that? And we did Mel in the Sky. I think we have everybody. That was fantastic. We made it through. I'm proud of us. Happy Monday. Our next meeting will be April 21st, 2025 at 7 p.m. in this room. And I hope you all have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.